Good. Here we go. I gotta mash the button on. Good morning. We have a sign-up sheet up front. If anybody'd like to speak to one of the measures, we will be amending the agenda to add House Bill 585. President Pro Tem Jones' bill she introduced last year, so we will be adding that to the agenda. All right. Good morning. We do have about a minute to go, but we have a sign-up sheet for anybody who would like to speak to a measure up front. All right, it is 8 o'clock sharp, and we will go ahead and get started. I'm going to ask Chairman Vance Smith if he'll open in prayer. Y'all bow with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lord, we do thank you for this day. Thank you for all the blessings you've given us, and thank you for your healing hand. You're the great physician, and we all have people back home and here in the area that need your help and your healing help. Lead, guide, and direct us in everything we do, and let it be your will. And bless this meeting as we come to you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. And like I said earlier, we will be amending the agenda. We're adding House Bill 585, which is Pro Tem Jones' bill we heard last year. We didn't take any action on it, but we did go ahead and get it out there. Any objections to adding 585 to the agenda?
I vote do pass.
Second. But no. Anyway, with no objections, we're adding that, and I'll ask Pro Tem Jones if she'll come to she wants to do it at the podium or the table and present her bill.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So, as you mentioned, I introduced the bill last year, spoke with the committee about it. Specifically did not take any action because I felt like the insurance industry, I needed to speak more with Revenue Department, learn more about the issue, and I think we've come to a good substitute that takes the insurance industry is very involved in this just to make sure that it works technically, as well as I met with Revenue Department 2 or 3 times to make sure they could do this. So the issue that I'm bringing before you is that when a consumer purchases automobile insurance, they can, if they want to, exclude drivers. So, for example, if somebody's in your household that has a very bad driving record, or that would just be an example of how they could exclude them. What has happened, it appears, in talking with some of the traffic court judges and others who have experienced this, is that there's a potential of it being gamed. And so that if that excluded driver were to drive the car and be stopped, say, for a traffic violation, speeding, or running a traffic light or traffic stop, when the police officer shows up and looks in, I guess, the GICS program, which is supplied by the Revenue Department, the police officer or sheriff's deputy will see, well, the car's insured. And so, they might cite them for some violation or not, but certainly not for lack of insurance. Then when the victim or the person who, let's say, was hit by this car then goes to claim insurance on the other person, they have no insurance. The car is as though it was uninsured. And so then what then happens is it's covered by all of us who pay into uninsured motorist coverage. And so I had the Atlanta traffic judge mentioned to me last year, he is seeing this over and over again. And it's just we need to close that loophole. And so working with Revenue Department, they did not believe it would be a problem since to code, when they get the information from the insurance companies, to code it that there is an excluded driver and who that excluded driver is. And so that's what the bill would do, is simply make it clear to law enforcement that to check for that. And so with that, I'm happy to, well, the other thing I will mention on C and D, starting on lines 46 through 56, I confirmed with Ledge Counsel Sarah Crichton that the penalties, on the excluded driver, would be if they didn't have proof of insurance. It's all uniform with what we do now. Nothing changes for anybody else who didn't have proof of insurance. And then in D, if the owner, and it's a high threshold, knowingly authorizes someone to operate a vehicle upon which they have insurance and that person is an excluded driver, the penalties and potential imprisonment would mimic what is in current law for anyone else who knowingly allows. So, for example, if you had a car and you knew you did not have insurance on it of any kind, and you drove the car, these would be the same penalties because you're authorizing someone to drive a car that does not have insurance coverage for that person. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, you do have a few questions. Number 25.
I'll pass.
That's okay. Number 26.
That's fine. Thank you for bringing this, but I just had a quick question. So, if the person driving the car has insurance and it's your vehicle, if you let me drive your vehicle and I have insurance, then and I hit somebody, then my insurance is going to take care of it, correct?
The insurance follows the vehicle,
Okay.
not the person.
So if you have insurance on it, then and you let me drive your vehicle, then we're fine.
If I allowed you to drive my car, and you were not an excluded driver, then the vehicle would be covered.
Well, I guess that's where. So you have to be an actual excluded driver.
Yes.
Okay, so on your insurance policy, you'd say this person's not allowed to drive my car.
These are not common.
Okay.
I mean, I don't mean it's rare, but it's not. Most of us have never anticipated having an excluded driver.
Okay.
So yeah, it would only pertain when there is an excluded driver and that excluded driver drives the car.
Okay, so my son driving my truck, even though
It's
he's
not
got
a
another
problem.
insurance on his own truck and he drives mine, then that.
Your
he's fine.
car is covered because you have insurance
Okay,
on your
thank
car.
you.
Number 12, Representative Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we have the dynamic where there is the excluded driver is driving the car, creates an accident. So what happens to that excluded driver if they're not covered and this bill protects the covered? Is there a lawsuit? Does the victim have to just do a personal lawsuit? Is that, I mean,
So
how does it come out?
So currently, the excluded driver, there'd be no citation from law enforcement because they would not know that the car was uninsured under those particular circumstances. Now, if they caused the accident, they might not be cited for lack of insurance, but they'd be cited for a traffic violation. That's totally separate and not covered by this. But currently what happens is the person who's on the victim of the accident, not the excluded driver, the victim of the accident thinks that there's coverage on the vehicle because it appears that the car is insured. They go back to their insurance agent, the agents talk, and they realize, oh no, this is no different than an uninsured car. And so their recourse is to go through the uninsured insurance.
Motorist, and which increases your power.
Which increases
premium.
it for all of us, especially as more and more people learn about this.
So
Because
if I may.
it is a legitimate thing to have an excluded driver. I'm not against that
Right.
policy decision of individuals.
Just for clarity, one more thing, please.
Yeah.
You said that the judges, at least in Fulton County State Court, Fulton County Court, is seeing this over and over and over
Yes.
again. Tell me again, if this is not a prevalent.
It's becoming more prevalent. It appears, anecdotally, it appears to be.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 1, Representative Montahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Madam Leader, Pro Tem, sorry, for the bill. I think this solves a big problem that I see in our industry. You know, actually, you're sitting here with the Drivers Ed Caucus, great guy here that teach teen drivers. And oftentimes we see that children who have either left the house and gone to college, who are no longer driving mom and dad's car, are still included on these policies that may increase these rates. Or you have a a child who is otherwise eligible to drive a vehicle in the household who does not possess a driver's license or has no interest in driving at that point in time. Though I may recommend that everybody should have an interest in driving a vehicle. That's just a personal
I
preference
can
I have.
understand your perspective.
Would you agree that this would help those parents in that situation who are trying to make insurance a little bit more affordable by maybe working with their insurance company to exclude these drivers from these policies and save $1 or $2? They can help put some more groceries on the table.
Well, I think the whole idea of having excluded drivers can do that. This just makes sure that that parent can then feel comfortable telling their child that's been excluded, "Not Johnny, you're not driving the car ever, because if you get stopped, you're going to be cited, and and if I allow you to, I'm going to be cited with the potential penalties that are in the bill."
It seems like the rating would change to only the family members who would normally be, who now would regularly be. I think what I'm saying is, I think this is going to help people in the state of Georgia afford insurance.
I do think in some small way it will.
Yeah. And so,
I'm no expert on insurance, let me just say, but yes,
so thank you for bringing the bill.
thank you.
Number 27, Representative Mathis.
Yes, Speaker Pro Tem, thank you very much. I got a question. I had an incident in my hometown where I had a constituent contact me. He was in an accident. A car ran a red light, hit him. The car was insured, but the driver was, I don't know if it was excluded, but it wasn't listed. So they went, when they went to cover it, he was not.
That's right.
Their insurance didn't pay.
That's right.
So his had to pay. So, I'm
This
trying to get clarification.
That would probably be an instance of this.
That is exactly what I say. But now, let me ask you this: if we stop this, there'll be no insurance premiums for the victim of the wreck, the person. But now, in a case where right now, if we don't pass this, if you hit me, but you aren't an intended driver, my insurance would go up. Is that correct? Do we have any recourse as of right now until this goes into effect?
Well, the recourse really is the uninsured motorist fund. Mm-hmm. But I think what this will do is discourage this practice as they learn. Because listen, if you're gaming it, they're not going to be cited for not having insurance, and so. When owners of vehicles learn that section small d on line 51 could apply to them, I'm going to tell you, I think that'll end it, or certainly greatly discourage it. You can literally go to jail. And I did double check. This is no harsher than what we do now for someone who drives without insurance. It's the same penalty because that's what's happening. Yes. They're driving without insurance. So I don't have a way for the long arm to reach. This does not reach that owner of the vehicle. I mean, it's a contract with their insurance company. You wouldn't want to make the insurance company pay for illegal behavior. And this does not. But I think you will find this happens over time far less frequently.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that when I had insurance, I have commercial vehicles, and I let people drive a vehicle, borrow a vehicle or whatever. I was just under the assumption that policy covered it. But when this individual came in, the driver of the car that hit him ended up not being listed as a driver. An eligible driver, and they didn't pay. He had to
you
follow
were
his
behaving legally because your car was covered for anybody who drove the car that you allowed. But yeah, the other party was behaving illegally, and that's what this would address.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 17, Representative Alexander.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Madam Pro Tem. I know you said that it wasn't very prevalent. So how many occurrences did law enforcement share with you? How many occurrences are happening here in Georgia?
No,
to the point to where we would need this?
I don't think anybody's keeping a record of it, but the reason I introduced the bill last year was to hear from others. And I can tell you over and over, including from the representative you just heard from, it is definitely happening. And the traffic court judges or magistrate judges, they are seeing this. But if it happens one time, there's no reason not to make it illegal and knowable to law enforcement that someone is knowingly, the owner of the vehicle knowingly allowed someone to drive a car uninsured.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Pro Tem, I thought you explained this bill very well, but we keep getting
That's
a
all
lot
right.
of questions.
I'd never heard of this either, so.
Number 18.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Madam Pro Tem. I just got all real confused because so now who would be responsible? I mean, when I say responsible, would the agent be responsible for says that I mean, it's when I bring you the policy that you can exclude a driver, because I mean, this is the first I've heard about an exclusion, because I see all of my children on my policy.
Sure. So it is a private decision between the vehicle owner and the insurance company if they choose to exclude a driver. Most of us sitting here probably have never anticipated doing that, but there are people who do it, and it is I do not oppose that ability for an owner of a vehicle to be able to make that decision if it brings down their insurance rate, or if there's somebody they definitely don't. It could be a vehicle that they use for work as well, and they have employees at their work they do not want to cover to drive the vehicle. This does not in any way interfere with that decision of someone to purchase one of these policies. What this does is simply make sure that law enforcement is aware when they stop someone for whatever reason that this is a policy in which some people are not covered when they drive the vehicle. And then they can know who those people are if they're checking for insurance coverage.
Mr. Chairman, just a follow-up. Okay, so this is a scenario. I'm excluded from driving my parents' vehicle.
Right.
But I drive my uncle's vehicle, and I have an accident. This
does not touch that because you were driving your uncle's vehicle, not your parents' vehicle.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. So it doesn't. It follows the
vehicle.
Vehicle.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
He waives. No further questions. We do have two members of the audience signed up to speak to the measure. I'm asked to come up to the podium. We've got Barry Shrink. Come up to the podium, tell us your name and who you're with. Where are we at?
Morning, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the committee, Speaker Pro Tem. My name is Barry Schrank. I'm president and owner of Taggart's Driving School. When I saw this bill, I went to see Miss Jones and volunteer as a citizen and a business owner to say that this is a problem. In the last year, 2 of my cars have been involved in an accident. Neither of them are our fault while they were teaching students to drive. The police were called, investigated the accident, issued a ticket to the other driver, and checked their insurance ID cards. When I got the information and I called the other person's insurance company, they told me that person was excluded from the insurance and that they were not going to pay. So in one case, it was about $1,500 or $1,600 worth of damage. In another case, a little under $1,000. I could turn in uninsured motorist coverage. The only problem is, in the driving school business, there, I believe, the last time I heard, only 8 insurance companies that will write driving schools. And because it's difficult to get, I'm with a very good company, but I have a $2,000 deductible, an uninsured motorist. So both of those accidents came out of my pocket. I've been in business 50 years. I've been in all kinds of situations, and every instructor that works for me knows if they're involved in an accident, you have to call the police. Because, for example, if I've even had cases where someone has hit our car and then claimed that we hit their car. And that's why you have to call the police immediately while it's still fresh in everybody's mind before they can come up with stories and have it written on an accident report. So once this happened the first time, I have a pretty good relationship with the major, with our precinct in Tucker. I went to see him, explain the situation, and basically he said, tough stuff, son. They had an insurance ID card, showed the policeman, that's all we can do. Regardless of anything else, we don't have any authority. So when I saw the bill, I went to see Ms. Jones to tell her, just as if you're looking for somebody that's had this problem, I have had the problem, and I think it's going to get worse. I agree with everything that Ms. Jones said. I have no problem with this particular arrangement with the insurance company, but the problem will be resolved if on the insurance ID card or on the computer that the officer can pull up with revenue, that there's an exclusion. Then they can handle it different and write a ticket for no insurance. It's pretty simple, I think.
Okay, we do have one question, Chairman Prince.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Mr. Schrank. Based on your scenario you just used, so who pays? You still end up paying. Is that correct?
Yeah,
regardless
I
of
paid
whether,
because I didn't want my car on the road
Right.
looking like it was in an accident.
regardless of if the person's excluded based on this bill or not, you still end up paying according to this.
That's right.
You still end up paying.
Yes. Uh-huh.
If I
Okay,
could just
so-
interject, he would still pay.
Right.
This does not solve that. What it does,
Okay.
though, is through, it becomes a misdemeanor. And so it is a misdemeanor. It will greatly discourage that behavior, because if I knew that if I knowingly allowed someone
Right, no.
to use, that they could literally go to jail or have a fine up to $1,000 or both.
Mr. Clark, and this probably maybe to the more to you, Pro Tem. So is this bill intended to help the court system adjudicate certain things? Because
The intent of the bill is to make sure that law enforcement knows if a vehicle is uninsured. That's
it's a driver, you mean? Excuse me.
it's a vehicle. Insurance follows the vehicle. So does it allow we have a system now, a computer system called GICS, that every insurance company feeds all this information to. You may be aware of this. And so that when there's an accident or somebody stopped, you know, oh, car's insured, because we have a pretty, so no different than, if you think of it, this is treating that vehicle, which is uninsured, no different than we treat any other vehicle that would be uninsured. So if his car, the two cars you were referring to, two accidents, if they were hit by drivers who didn't have an excluded policy, they just were uninsured.
Right.
The vehicles were uninsured,
And you still pay.
he would still pay.
Got
So
it.
this is in line with what happens today for all other uninsured vehicles that are on the road. I don't treat it any differently. If someone wants to try to address that in the future, like allow the long arm of the law to go after someone in a different manner, you would want to do it for all uninsured vehicles, not just this particular kind of policy.
Okay,
In
so
my opinion.
just a quick, one more,
Yeah.
just for clarification. So if I am an excluded person, I have an accident, you still pay. If you are not an excluded, but your name is just not on there. Your name is nowhere, and you drive it, the same vehicle, you have an accident, he still has to pay because you're not on his.
No, so if the two vehicles he had were hit by insured drivers, or insured cars, and there was no excluded driver, or somebody was driving the car's covered, whatever's in his policy, whatever's in their policy would cover that. This would treat it no different than if the vehicle was not covered by insurance.
Thank you.
All right, number 27, Representative Mathis.
So we're just, the owner of the vehicle in Section D will just be fined. Okay, so that's basically the only thing we're adding to this. It doesn't, Mr. Shrink's case sounded familiar to the one that I was told about. So basically, we're going after the owner for allowing an excluded driver to drive a vehicle.
That's right, and making sure that law enforcement knows it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
And you opened a little door there for me. I wonder if we could talk and see if we could close that loophole for when somebody drives a car to make him be responsible for his car getting hit and the accident was caused by somebody else. Could we have some conversations to tighten up that? Because that's exactly what happened in that deal, is that they got hit, was ticketed for it. When they went to file the insurance, they said he was not on the insurance. I don't know if he was excluded, but he wasn't. So he ended up having to file his insurance to cover his car. So there you go again. He's got a claim that they're going to raise his premiums probably, and he had to use his insurance well. So
That would be a big, that would require a lot of work that someone, and that might be something you would be up to for. The only thing I would encourage you, the more I've learned about this issue, that's why we have uninsured motorist coverage. This is a little tiny piece of it. Most people who are hit by a vehicle that is uninsured, they don't have an excluded driver. They just didn't have coverage.
Yeah.
Either they couldn't afford it,
Sure.
that's probably the case, or they have such a bad driving record that they can't afford it, or they can't get coverage. And so I would think you would want to, if you wanted to address that in a different way, the way we do insurance coverage, you'd want to address all
Yeah.
uninsured car vehicles, because it's
one
such a small
one
piece
quick
of it.
follow-up. If we could just list on there, if that scenario happened, and I had to file, or they had to file on their insurance to cover an accident they didn't, that the insurance company could not count that as a claim and raise their premiums.
I would encourage you to maybe talk to the next speaker. who's
Yeah, I think we got somebody coming up.
insurance, because
You'll help
he's
us
an
with that.
expert. I'm not. I don't know that. I don't think it raises your insurance rate, but I'm no expert, because I think that's the purpose of the uninsured motorist coverage
Thank
that
you.
we are required to carry. We are all required to carry.
Thank you.
One more, number 12, and then we're going to go to our next speaker.
Chairman, Madam Pro Tem, just for clarity, I'm trying to connect the dots for when this bill alerts the law enforcement. How does that help the judges that are making the decision whether or not to actually implement these charges?
So today, if a person is driving a vehicle and because they were excluded, they're driving that vehicle, law enforcement stops them for, say, running a stop sign. The law enforcement doesn't know that that is an excluded driver, doesn't know there's a policy that has an excluded driver, because the only information that the insurance industry supplies to the Revenue Department, who just happens to be the agency that runs the program that communicates back to law enforcement on their computer. They look it up, they have coverage. It doesn't include that information. And so what this bill does is it directs the insurance industry to provide that additional information to the Revenue Department. Then when law enforcement stops someone for whatever reason and says, show me your insurance card, as you all know, you don't really have to see the insurance card.
Right.
It's in their program. They can look and tell if a person has insurance. They can look it up. That's more important, frankly, than an outdated maybe insurance card. You can't find the insurance card. They can then tell, oh, there's an excluded driver. is this the excluded driver that was driving the car? Because if they were, the car is uninsured.
The car is
uninsured at the time of the accident, because whenever an excluded driver drives a vehicle with coverage, it's as though there's no coverage. And so what is the purpose? The purpose is to let law enforcement know, who could then cite them for lack of coverage, and then they could, when they go to the judge can determine, did you knowingly authorize this? And if they did, then they could be subject to
Section D.
penalties.
okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We've got one more speaker signed up, Bobby Potter, State Farm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Speaker Pro Tem Jones. My goal this morning, having talked with her yesterday afternoon and several times before that, was to come and say I represent State Farm. We support the bill. So I can honestly say that. We work with her. I represent State Farm, have for a long time. We support the bill. The bill, now that I've heard all these questions, and without getting into all that.
Clearly poor explanation.
No. I would say she explained the bill exactly the way it was. The questions got far broader and about what happens to this, what happens to that. I've been in a wreck, what happens to this? This bill does two things. It deals with an excluded driver, and if a law enforcement person pulls that driver over, forget the wreck, probably didn't have a wreck, ran a stop sign, whatever it is, then that person will be listed in the GEEK system as an excluded driver. That law enforcement officer will know that driver is excluded and can ticket him or her accordingly. D, maybe a little down the road, the owner, if that owner allowed that excluded driver to drive that vehicle knowingly, then that owner suffers the penalties outlined in D. And as we talked about it yesterday, she said, well, gosh, $200, that doesn't sound like much. And then as we went through it, $200 is on one end, that's the minimum. 12 months in jail is the maximum, pretty severe stuff. It's dealing with this sliver of the driving population. And as we talked about it, it is a sliver, but the driving population is whatever it is, 5 million people. So it's a bigger number. But that's it, that's all this bill does. There are other consequences totally outside the scope of this bill and this conversation, but that's what this bill does. And it's good from that perspective. It holds two people accountable, somebody that's driving a vehicle because they're listed that way in this policy and they shouldn't be doing it, or the owner that allows that and shouldn't be doing it. That's all it does.
We do have one question. Number one, Rep. Montana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Potter, for your testimony. So I have a question for you. Is excluded driver anywhere else in Georgia code, or is that new? The definition of excluded driver.
No, absolutely no answer to that. It was put in here. I think it is utilized, and it's utilized in other states as excluded driver. The number is relatively low, but it exists, and as the Speaker Pro Tem indicated, people can do that if they've got bad drivers in their household, a history of that. They could list that person as an excluded driver. We're not covering that.
That's not my question. Ms. Potter, is excluded driver a new term or definition in Georgia code under this bill?
It's in this bill. I don't know if it's otherwise in the Georgia code. I don't know the answer to your question.
I don't believe it's been codified as the new term.
So I think, thank you for that. And it's good to see you back. So I think if we're going to add, when we're adding the excluded driver, I think this is where things kind of get, I think there are some questions, and I love the bill, by the way. I think it's a good bill. I think it does add a level of complexity that maybe why so many people have questions for you specifically, and that is, if we're going to exclude a driver, we're trying to go down the road, no pun intended, of understanding how this operates within the framework of ratings. So, because if we exclude a driver from a policy with the understanding that there's a 16-year-old in that household, we're trying to understand that we have effectively now a policy that covers a vehicle who's rated with the possibility of covering a 16-year-old or a college student who's under the age of 25. However, they're excluded from the policy and it wouldn't pay out, because I'm assuming that the insurance company, if now we include them under this excluded driver, is not going to pay out based on it. Is that correct?
So I'll tell you two things. The Speaker Pro Tem said our next speaker is going to be an expert in insurance. I represent State Farm. I don't live this every day, but I would say the answer to your question is this. That excluded driver is driving down the road without insurance because he or she is listed as an excluded driver. That benefits that household because they will pay fewer premiums. If that car is uninsured, whether it's an excluded driver or somebody that just didn't buy insurance, then the responsible citizens will buy uninsured motorist coverage to protect themselves. And that's what a ton of people do. And that's one of the cheapest insurances available is uninsured motorist to protect yourself. You don't otherwise buy liability insurance to protect yourself. You protect the stranger. It also protects your house so somebody doesn't sue and take it. But that's the nature of it.
All right, we've got other bills we've got to get to. I'm gonna cut the questions off. I've got two other. I'm gonna real quick. Number 27.
Just one quick thing I just want to say is that if the owner disputes the right for that other person to drive, I just want to say, what's the recourse? If he says, I don't agree, I didn't tell him to drive it, he just took it, who's going to get fined?
It would be that just like any other thing that comes before a judge. That's for the judge to determine.
Okay.
Did you murder this person? Did you hit this person? Did you let this person drive knowingly? That's a decision for the judicial system.
One more question. We're going to call the question. Number 21, Chairman Powell.
Yeah, this is the reason I don't deal with insurance bills. Quite
Likewise.
frankly.
I don't blame you.
Bobby, let me ask you a question when we're talking about the term excluded driver. I have an insurance policy. It's got me as listed on there. There's nothing on there about anybody being excluded. What determines what's an excluded driver?
In your policy, under your circumstance, if you're driving your vehicle, obviously you're covered. If you allow somebody else as a permissive user, they're likewise covered.
That would be a family member.
Family member
A
could be a
friend.
friend. It's a permissive user. That's more routine than this sliver that we're talking about right here.
So this excluded driver's got to be specifically listed on your policy
Yes, sir.
as being excluded.
Right.
That's right.
So how does the insurance companies know who's to be excluded?
Because they write the
wrote
policy.
the policy.
Is it because it's voluntary on behalf of the coverage that if I say this guy's a friend of mine or a family member and I don't want them driving my car and I don't want to be put under the pressure, say, hell no, you can't drive it because you're a bad driver. Is that how we're getting to this part of being an excluded driver?
It's generally going to be somebody in the household that you would want to exclude.
I think it just answered my question. Thank you.
That is it. And the whole purpose of this bill is to convey that information to law enforcement so they know it when they have a traffic stop.
All right, no further questions. What's the pleasure of the committee? I got a motion and several seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
Pro Tem. It's quite interesting. Chairman Carson's, we'll go to your bill next. This is going to be hearing only, so come up to the table and
Great. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This is House Bill 809. This was introduced at the end of session last year just to get some discussion going. What this is doing is looking to raise not the maximum speed limit in Georgia, but raise the minimum speed limit in Georgia. I have a civil engineer that's a constituent of mine. He brought up this issue to me, that the minimum speed limit in Georgia, based on his knowledge, as well as my research on LexisNexis and AI, the minimum speed limit in Georgia is 40 miles per hour, has not been increased since at the latest, the early 1970s, about when I was born. And during that time, the maximum speed limit was, for many years, as you know, 55 miles per hour. And then it was raised in the mid-90s when there was a change in control of Congress in regard to the restrictions tied to federal funding, and the various states, including Georgia, raised our speed limit to 65 miles per hour, but we didn't touch our minimum speed. And later we raised our maximum speed to 70 miles per hour. That creates a difference of about 30 miles per hour between the high and the low. And you might see some information in your handout there in regard to what other states have done with their speed limits. I believe you're going to see speed limits of around 45, 50 miles per hour in other states. The concern that I have, and the concern of public safety that have endorsed this bill, including the chiefs of police and the Sheriff's Association, is that we have such a high differential between maximum speed and minimum speed. So again, I want to be very clear. I don't want to increase the maximum speed in Georgia. What this is looking to do is raise the minimum speed. I have been, like I said, I should have in the handouts there, letters of endorsement from the Georgia Sheriff's Association, the Georgia Chiefs of Police. There's also a letter of support from the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety. I have been in discussion with the Georgia Department of Transportation. Those discussions are ongoing. What they have said is that it is possible for them to do this administratively rather than do so with legislation. Mr. Chairman, this is a late addition. I apologize for this, but I have a copy of 40.6.184. Should I? Okay. Thanks, Brian. And what this does, this particular section, 40.6.184, I don't know why it's on legal size, sorry. In subparagraph B, it basically says that the Commissioner of Public Safety, along with the Commissioner for Transportation, can jointly, after an investigation on the basis of engineering and traffic investigation, may increase the speed limit for a particular jurisdiction, is what it says. To me, and how I read that, and how the Commissioner of Public Safety, who, like I said, has written a letter of support himself for the bill, he believes this needs to be statewide, and I'm currently in discussions with DOT in regard to making this statewide. If it says here, when it does in the code, whenever the Commissioner of Public Safety and the Commissioner of Transportation or local authorities determine on the basis of any engineering and traffic investigation that slow speeds on any part of the road under their respective jurisdiction impede the normal reasonable movement of traffic, such commissioners jointly, and I want to stress that phrase, or such local authorities may determine and declare a minimum speed limit below which no person shall drive a vehicle. So it is true that DOT can weigh in regard to a minimum speed limit, but it has to be done with the Commissioner of Public Safety, again, who's written a letter of support for a statewide law. And then secondly, it has to be after an engineering and traffic investigation. So that's what I want to do, sir. Basically, I want to limit the number of rear end collisions. I will tell you, I had a little bill about 8 years ago in regard to these things, and I've received fatality reports from GDOT and Governor's Office of Highway Safety, and quite honestly, to my friends both on both sides of the aisle, it's horrific. It's horrific, particularly the rear end collisions.
All right, I don't see anybody sign up to speak. We do have a question on there, but I think you and I, we had a conversation possibly about the cost, the number of signs, and time to implement this if we do it, and that's kind of conversations we've had.
That's correct. DOT has been undecided on this because they seem to, and I have had a number of conversations, or several, with their legislative liaison as well as their chief engineer. They haven't, I requested back in January, early January, the first week, as you remember, Mr. Chairman, a cost estimate, because we really don't know how many minimum speed limit signs we have in Georgia. I reiterated that request last week. I still have not received any cost information. I do want to do this on a collaborative effort, and I would want to do something where this does not have, in coordination with the Legislative Council, I just want to make sure this does not have a punitive start date like July 1st of 26. I would want to do something January 1st of next year or July 1st of next year, enough time for a healthy implementation such that DOT and our friends in public safety know about this and we can move forward with clear communication as opposed to haphazardly.
Right, and that's we're on the same page on that, and that's why we're at hearing only until we can hopefully get that date, what would work for everybody. But anyway, we do have a few questions.
Sure.
Number 12, Representative Taylor.
I guess my concern is seniors, for example, or a student driver that's learning how to drive. I know I agree. I want you to get out of my way when we're on the expressway. However, I think that, I guess in my mind, I'm thinking it would be a better solution, although we do say slower traffic move to the right, something in that arena, because it almost feels like I'm being penalized because I can't drive 50 miles an hour, and that really concerns me in reference to student drivers, new drivers, and seniors driving. So can you address that for me, please?
Based on the current speeds, I don't think there's, in order for a student, if I can just answer it in two parts, one regard to student drivers and elderly, or senior drivers. I would say in regard to senior drivers, there's including on 40.6.184, the first item here on this handout, subparagraph A, no person shall drive a motor vehicle at a slow speed as to impede the normal and reasonable movement of traffic. Now, that's what I would say to our senior citizens. There are other routes to take across Georgia. It's not as convenient, granted. What this legislation only impacts is where the speed limit is on a state public road, either 65 or higher miles per hour. Okay. In regard to the students, I would say more or less the same thing. They're going to need to learn to
speed it up.
Speed it up, yes.
Okay. Since it's a hearing only, I'm going to ask to keep our questions to one. We got 4 other questions, and then we'll move on. We got 3 other measures to hear.
I guess I didn't explain it well, sir.
Number 20, it lit up. Number 26.
Oh, I just had a quick question. You was talking about, you said y'all did the investigations, mostly rear end collisions, correct?
Well, I did not do an investigation.
Or
when I quoted investigations, I was quoting this code section in regard to what the Commissioner of Public Safety and the Commissioner of Transportation jointly must use to determine the adjusting of a minimum speed limit.
Okay, well, I'm guessing you came up with this bill though because there has been.
I've heard from. Okay, on that, I've heard from multiple groups, public safety advocates, but specifically the chiefs of police and the Sheriff's Association, as well as the Department of Public Safety, has noted that some of the crashes that they're investigating have to do with the differential in speed.
Okay, and the rear end. So I was just curious if there, as we go through this process, or as you go through this process, if we could figure out most of these accidents or rear end collisions, are they over in the left-hand lane? Are they in the right-hand lane? I know as much as we drive, we see everybody dropping 40 in the left-hand lane down the interstate.
I understand.
And that's dangerous because when everybody starts trying to get over and you start maneuvering, that's when you have a wreck. So I was just wondering if there was any findings. I know you're pretty diligent in your stuff that you do, so I didn't know if you had a chart or anything from DOT showing. I would be the, I guess, the one. I would have to ask Department of Public Safety if they have that, because I will tell you, after we did the law concerning these things several years ago, Department of Public Safety put together much more enhanced forms in regard to data collection at crashes. Okay.
So that might be available, and I can ask the question.
Number 18, Representative McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess mine's going to be real quick. So if I'm going 49, is there a fine? I'm just trying to figure out,
If you're, well, right now, I don't know many people that are going 39 and they get a fine.
I'm just, that was my only concern is that, so is there a fine associated with it if I'm not going 50?
I believe there is on a strict interpretation, but I believe there's also a little bit of leeway above the maximum and a little bit of leeway below the minimum.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
One more. Number 1, Representative Montagne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Carson. The Driving School Caucus over here has convened, and we are confident that whatever you want to set this to, we're going to teach them. We'll get them up to speed. Ain't no issue there. We'll get y'all going. And I think to the representative's question earlier about the seniors, what you're saying is there's a way, it just ain't the expressway.
Correct.
Thank you.
And I know it's not as convenient. I know it's not as quick, but the bottom line is that it is safer.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like I said, this was a hearing only, and I know DOT, y'all working with them, and we'll try to get it back on the agenda quick, so hopefully we can get that information and be ready to move on. So, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee.
All right, we've got 2 other bills on, actually 3 other bills, so we're going to have to move fast. HB 1073, Representative Carter.
That's probably fast, do fast.
Good morning and Happy New Year to anyone I haven't seen. And this is my first time being in front of you. Lively crew, interesting committee. So the bill number is HB 1073 LC 394874.
That's it. We got it.
So this is a very simple bill. Jackson State University Alumni Association Atlanta chapter would like to have a specialty license plate tag in the state of Georgia. The revenues generated for this tag will sponsor scholarships for Georgia students to Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi, where I actually went to Jackson State University on a music scholarship. To date, they've given over 370 scholarships from Georgia students to Jackson State, and I won't go into some of the noted alumni, but we'd be very appreciative if you would pass this simple piece of legislation.
All right, and all the requirements of DOR for is the pre-selling 1,000 tags, or writing a check for $25,000 to cover the initial cost of the manufacturing fee, the rendition, 501c3. All those requirements have been met, and I've got that.
All documents have been met. Funds were paid.
All right, number 21.
At the proper time, I'd like to move we pass this bill forward in the abundance of time, since some of us got to get the rules.
All right, we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Bill passes.
Thank you all very much.
All right. Chairman Ballard.
Mr. Chairman, if I could have another meeting at 9.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Tell us your bill and LC number.
I've got HB 1181, and it's LC 640042.
Do that an LC number again?
640042.
42. Okay. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I hope this is a simple bill. This bill it cuts red tape. Specifically, I think it's going to work a little better for our military families who have family members that are far-flung all over the country. It allows a decedent's car to come directly from the estate where the estate is domiciled to a first-degree relative who is inheriting it. Right now, what happens is if you have a decedent in one state and then the person inheriting the car is a Georgia resident, but the executor of the estate lives in a third state. Right now, the car has to be titled in that third state to the executor before it can be titled to the person inheriting it in Georgia. I want to skip that intermediate step and have it go straight from where the estate is to the person in Georgia.
All right, I see no questions. What's the pleasure, committee? I got a move in a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. You have your bill.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, I'm gonna turn the meeting over to Vice Chair Matt Barton. If he, what's your number?
22.
22. Okay. We do have one other bill on the agenda. If you want to go ahead and.
All right. Well, Mr. Chairman, it's your bill, so if you want to present it, please.
All right, House Bill 1202, LC 394910. And the what we're doing here, we did a bill a couple years ago, the Georgia Motor Vehicle Crime Prevention Advisory Board. This bill passed, but now it was set up under the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. And anyway, they are set up where they can receive the money. They're actually administering this grant program. The code section that was in 356A-15, it allows them to do grants to counties and municipalities. It basically is 35-6A-16, sets up where they can grants to this motor vehicle crime prevention unit. And that's all we're doing.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Mr. Chairman, you have your bill.
Thank you. No further things on the agenda. The meeting is adjourned. You're not working.
Is this a hearing only? Is this a hearing?